Hello, beautiful people. How are ya? I hope you're having a great day. This is part 2 of the mouse study and central sensitization. So, how do you tie in the mouse study and central sensitization? Because if central sensitization and the medications explained everything, they'd be a cure, right? Or at the very least, get us close to 100% under control. But at best, people with fibromyalgia may get up to a 30% improvement in pain and other symptoms. The IgG antibodies that were used in the mice study that are floating around in our blood are detected in the dorsal root ganglions, but not in the brain or spinal cord. These antibodies target muscle, fascia, collagen, or matrix components. They are abnormal. They shouldn't be there, causing what feels like muscle bruises all over our body. And so in the mice study, their conclusion is different from what Dr. Liptan theorizes. She theorizes that the whole chain reaction of IgG antibodies start attacking their healthy muscles and fascia and start generating an unhealthy response in them, and also are activated at the dorsal root ganglion. So let's take a look at the dorsal root ganglion. But there's one arm that goes to the spinal cord and one arm that goes to sensory nerves. There's a link below. The term ganglion refers to neuronal cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. They're an extension of the spinal column and have spinal nerves coming out of the spine. The periphery brings in sensory information to the dorsal root ganglion where neurons are located. So, according to Dr. Liptan, this may be where the antibodies interact at the dorsal root ganglion in fibromyalgia to generate pain hypersensitivity. The dorsal root ganglion is located between the sensory nerves, our spinal cord, and our brain. It filters out pain signals between the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. It also has receptors for antibodies. So when an abnormal sensory response comes from the sensory, it gets triggered and sends messages to the brain that something is definitely going on. It senses an injury. But it isn't just the fibroantibodies that can trigger that response. Other mice studies have shown that when a mouse has their foot cut, for example, they'll also generate antibodies in the same way. It's responsive to antibodies and immune signals. Those antibodies will bind to the dorsal root ganglion and cause pain sensitivity. So what does Dr. Liptan think? She doesn't feel that our immune response is different from any other immune response. But that's the conclusion, it appears, from the researchers in the mice study that we've been talking about. For example, in rheumatoid arthritis, there are antibodies that are generated against connective tissue, particularly in our joints. So the conclusion of these researchers was that there must be antibodies like NRA, but Dr. Liptan says, then how do you explain the fight or flight abnormalities or sleep abnormalities found in fibromyalgia? This is where she wants to step back and look at the basics of fibromyalgia, the central sensitivity side of it. You can then add in the antibody data and get the full picture. We already know the sympathetic nervous system is involved. We know we have poor sleep. We know we have abnormally high intramuscular pressure and impaired muscle relaxation. And we know there are markers of oxidative stress and inflammation in muscles and fascia. So she believes what triggers fibromyalgia is something like trauma, injury, illness, infection, those things we've heard many times before. And that triggers the sympathetic nervous system, and there's an abnormal response where that reaction doesn't stop. There's a hyperactivity or relentless activity. It's gone totally haywire. And the brain is constantly sending messages to our body that we're in danger. So our body is ready to flee or fight. And for both of these responses, our muscles tighten, and we need power to fight off danger. We see in fibromyalgia, our muscles are tight and tense all the time. That's why we have to work with our body to relax those muscles. And she's found 100% of the people she's worked with in her clinic have also experienced this same thing. I know I can attest to this. Our sympathetic nervous system is a network of nerves that helps our body activate its fight or flight response. This system's activity increases when you're stressed, in danger, or physically active. Its effects include increasing your heart rate and breathing ability, improving your eyesight, and slowing down processes like digestion. It's best known for its role in responding to dangerous and stressful situations. The sympathetic nervous system is part of the autonomic nervous system. It's our fight or flight response. But it's not the whole picture. Because of the micro traumas occurring in the muscles due to constant pressure occurring within them, antibodies are the reaction. It's how our body responds to injury. So could these antibodies that are floating around in our blood, found in the mice study, be generated from this constant injury to the muscles and fascia? That's what Dr. Liptan believes. She goes on. Poor sleep is then associated with fibromyalgia, but imagine trying to sleep when all this muscle pressure is happening. She relates it to a smoke alarm that never turns off. How can you sleep when you have a smoke alarm blaring at you? There's no smoke, no fire, but the alarm is blaring. When you sleep, it's a light sleep, alpha delta sleep. Sleep is one of the first things that doctors focus on to calm our system down. Regarding inflammation, there are elevated serum IL-6 and IL cytokines and other inflammatory markers that are often found in fibromyalgia studies. It's like our brain is on fire. Brain glial cell activation happens throughout the cortex in fibromyalgia patients, which is not activated in a healthy brain, and that increases substance P in the cerebral spinal fluid. The FMA test is a blood test that people can get that helps to determine inflammatory patterns in fibromyalgia. Dr. Liptan has a study that is under peer review where she pulls it all together with her own hypothesis. With all that we know in this new antibodies study, it's like that last missing puzzle piece. Our constantly tense muscles are going to experience micro traumas in the muscles and fascia, little tiny injuries with each movement, The body responds to injury with antibodies and inflammatory responses. So these antibodies could be caused by this inflammatory response. Is this the missing link? We need to understand what is going on in our muscles and in our nerves. She believes it is. So this is exciting. An autoimmune response is an immune response that is abnormally activated against the self, and it shouldn't be. So in fibro, is there an immune response against our muscles or the glial cells? More research is needed, but it could be an autoimmune response. There are autoimmune treatments that could be tried on fibromyalgia, and if those work, then there's more data. The problem is that some autoimmune treatments have been tried with not a lot of success, like prednisone. It doesn't work in the way that it does on, for example, lupus. I know that I enjoy taking prednisone, although I take it rarely, because it gives me some bit of energy to get things done. I'm not as aware of the pain, but it doesn't take it away. Fibromyalgia doesn't act in the same way as most autoimmune conditions, so we need to know more. For example, there's a huge prevalence of fibromyalgia in lupus patients, and 30 to 40% of fibromyalgia patients have an autoimmune disease. The standard inflammatory markers, SED rate, ESR, and CRP, that are often checked in inflammatory conditions in our blood work, are not detected in fibromyalgia patients. So in fibromyalgia patients, the levels of cytokines of like IL-6 and IL-8 found in fibromyalgia studies have shown those elevated. So there is inflammation. It's not something you can get tested for outside of a research study, though. If standard markers are elevated, then you have to look at dietary things like gluten, eggs, and other foods. If lupus, RA, etc. are not found. Dr. Liptan also has a book, and I just learned this, I didn't know it, The Fibro Food Formula, a real-life approach to fibromyalgia relief. I'm going to have to check this out. But the antibody study is exciting because now it ties in antibodies to our pain signaling. We do need more research still, but I believe there will be many. There are 10 million of us worldwide with fibromyalgia, and it takes a community to create change. We're all in this together. So I hope you will continue to join me on this channel. I send you gentle hugs and support. Love you. So when it senses an abnormal sensory response coming from the sensory, So when there's an abnormal sensory response,